It's beyond time and space.
Mm-hmm.
And even if we decide, and this is the best part, we get to decide to either sit in our stuff and have God meet us here with us, or if we want to take that journey to another level, we decide to go sit with God in it. And we get so much more out of it. Like,
Yeah.
ooh, it's so
Yeah.
juicy there. Anyways,
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Let's start healing. I'm Adrienne Murchison, and welcome to episode 164 of the Let's Start Healing podcast. We have more in common than we think, and what we have in common can change the world. And so I want to ask you if you ever think about why you are here in this life. Why were you born? What are you here to do? Uh, are you here to do anything? Is it important to even think in that way? But do you actually think about what's my purpose? What's my calling? Why am I here? And sometimes when we're thinking about that and we have these questions for God, or we might want to get closer to God, do you ever feel like, how do you get there? What's the first step? I don't know what to do. I don't even know how to figure out these things. And one of my beloved guests in the past, I remember she asked me during the episode, or she brought up the idea of, how do you pray? And prayer is, and she joked because she said I was going to say what I'm going to say right now. And that is actually, prayer is just talking to God. It's just a conversation with God, asking God. And I think of meditation as a space of listening. But what I'm getting to is just connect with God, stay connected and ask those questions, and you will get the answers. They will come to you. If you are asking in sincerity, you will absolutely get the answers. And I'm sure a part of you already knows that now because God put it there. And I'm bringing this up because of my guest today. Elisa Sterling-Cowan is an empowerment coach. She lives in Canada and she has been on the podcast before. She was on episode 129 with a powerful story. And if you haven't heard that episode or watched that episode, I really encourage you to do so. And our conversation today that I'm bringing you today is just, it's so lovely. And really, we get to, in the conversation, about talking about how God meets us where we are. God will meet you where you are. And that's the grace. That is the grace of God. And so often we will, I know I see things on social media about God loving us in spite of uh, what we did, or uh, just, we have this, I see these posts in words and, little poster posts, and it will say something to the effect of um, really presenting us as just uh, bad people that God loves anyway. And what I'm trying to offer you is the knowing that even God does not think of you as bad. God does not think of you as anything less than love. And He created you. He created you. So He's going to love you no matter what. And I think that as us humans, it's hard for us to imagine an entity, something divine, much less something human, which God is not. But it's hard for us to imagine being loved with no judgment. And that is the Lord. He loves you no matter what. He sees the beauty in you. And one of the things that Elisa brings up is that whatever our purpose is, it must include, I believe she said, our joy and fulfillment. And as another guest will say, that is your birthright. That is your birthright. So the decision now is, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? How are you going to discover or follow through with or continue with that path that is carved out just for you and your passion to serve in the world? What are you going to do? And again, the conversation with Elisa, it is just such a lovely flow for me about the idea of how God meets us where we are, the grace of God, how we get, as she puts it, to live this life, how we get like the fun of it, that it could be. It doesn't feel like fun for many of us often, but that is our own doing. We actually get to live this life and discover new things and go through trial and error. And these are things that we go into, but not exactly in these words. I mean, I just don't have the words for the beauty of how she talks. And Elisa is a empowerment coach, and she is someone that I just felt a kinship with as soon as we met. And we actually met, and we mentioned this in that previous episode. We met through Lisa Nichols' self-empowerment course. uh, I said self-empowerment, it was a public speaking course. And what maybe we see in each other, because there's some kind of a kinship, as I said, although we're different, but what we see in each other that's alike is a willingness to do the work. And, as things show up in our lives, whether uh, easy, hard, traumatic, painful, there's something that, helps her to get up and keep on going, and to heal and to love anyway and to forgive. And that's certainly something that I try to do. And that is a part of my own nature. And so I think maybe that's the connection that I feel towards her and we feel towards each other. I'm really excited about bringing you this conversation and the grace of Elisa Sterling-Cowan. I want to invite you to subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you are listening on, to like the episode. Please share Let's Start Healing with at least one person that you know. And you can reach me on social media at Let's Start Healing Podcast on Instagram, or my personal account is at Adrienne Marie 19. You can also email me at Let's Start Healing Podcast at gmail.com. So let's get to it. Let's get started. Let's meet her and let's start healing. Welcome, Elisa.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you back. And you know what? I want to start out with a question, because when I was waiting, a few minutes before you came on, and I was writing some notes about love. And I want to ask you a question, because I got into this conversation with somebody last night on the phone, and it was becoming a big deal. It was like he couldn't um, embrace the word love.
Oh,
And this is just a friend, not a romantic thing at all, but just the idea of the word love was hard for him to embrace. And so I'm like, I think this is a thing, not just for him, but for people. And I was just writing out what is love. And because I
mhm,
always say God is love because God is love.
mhm.
And so I wrote, and I want to know what you would say, because I might add this and credit you as I speak about it with what you may share. But I wrote, love is an outpouring of caring exponentially, caring and consideration. It's an act and an expression. It's a noun because you are love. And then I started writing, love is an embodiment, a container, and then I stopped because then you came on. I don't know where I was going with it. I kind of know, but I have to actually write it to it's a process.
Okay, not a
So,
problem. So this will be an awesome spot to kind of edit. I'm going to go grab the sheet I have on the wall that I
okay.
have that literally describes it. So I'm going to begin with something that inspired me years ago. And I saw it on YouTube. It was a woman describing her experience after or during her near death experience. So I experienced a near death experience, which I've shared about before. And for me, there's now like a kinship with those who have gone through that experience and come back with a level of understanding, not just intellectually, because she was a professor. And on top of the fact, she was not, and probably at the time that she was sharing it, she wasn't fully like, we'll say, a God believer either. But her experience now had her on the journey of exploring what her relationship with this source, now that she's personally experienced, is. And in her presentation, she described the attributes of the state of unconditional love. And I took down the bullet points, and then I'll share how it ties completely in with the idea of what I was going to share today. So it's a profound sense of belonging. Everything about everyone that exists is not only accepted, but it's admired, respected, recognized, and celebrated. It's a cooperative co-passion for being. Effortless. It feels easy and blissful. It's filled with a joy that is fundamental, remarkable only outside of that state of being. So inside of it, it's natural. Outside of it, it feels or looks like it's miraculous, right? Your thoughts, imagination, experiences, dreams, creations are recognized to be valuable to you, yourself, and to everyone else. So, to all that exist, all of you is of value. And then, no matter what you do or how you express yourself, you belong and are valued. That we are like each of us are intrinsically valuable, and everything we experience matters. Not not just the big things, the highlights that we see on social media, but also outside of our being. So not just to ourself where we find significance in whatever cause that we want to stand behind, but because we can see it, because we feel the experience, now that observation that we carry holds value. And again, not just to ourselves, but to each other and to all that is. And all that is in capital. So source, God, however you want to put that. And we are all always within and expressions of all that is. So we are an integrated part of that which we call source, that which we call God, because it's a relationship. And we can't have relationships if we are not in participation with the other. So the last note that I have here is, how can we be anything but perfect? We are a part of God just as much as it is us, right? And so we are created by it. It creates us. And because we get the gift of experience, emotions, feelings, and that is very unique in the way that we experience it as humans. Because we have that gift, we get to reflect appreciation, gratitude, and therefore love back to God.
Wow. Incredible. Incredibly beautiful. And this was, you wrote this, or someone, this person you mentioned wrote it
So the
or
person
said it?
was sharing some of the points. So I was going over the points as I was sharing it back to you. But again, these are my
This is you.
reflections or notes from what they had shared.
That is all right.
And
What's
in
her
particular, the last part,
name? Mhm.
that definitely is it. And
What's
my
her
topic for today is how I human.
Oh, I love this.
So
I
it's
love this.
about embracing the gift of us being human, all of
Yes.
us.
Now, before we go on, do you
Yeah,
remember her name?
I don't actually have, and that's the thing. I wanted to go back and find it
Yeah.
because I had the YouTube link here and it's completely wiped off, like it's gone.
Oh my.
But because she was also sharing other aspects, which are, we'll say, countercultural to how society
Yes.
was, in
Yeah.
especially in particular when certain things came out in 2020 and
Yeah.
they were scrubbing a lot off of the internet, it went with it.
Oh
Well, I
my.
actually don't have her name. And so that's the thing.
Okay.
I was like, well, I have this lesson and or these lessons,
Mhm. Mhm.
and from which if I hadn't saved these, like it saved my life. And I'll get more into that as well
That's
in our
well,
conversation.
it's incredibly beautiful, and it's what I know. What you just
Mhm.
described is what I know.
And that's the
Yeah.
thing. I think each and every one of us at our core of essence knows this to be true
Yes.
and that we desire it because it is our natural state.
Yes. 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 Um, so share, let's go into there's some things I want to bring up later as that are coming up for me as we're sharing right now. But
Mhm.
embracing human, I love that.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So, as we're moving further along into this decade, oh, wow.
Yeah.
There, and to think 2020 is where this decade started, and it started with a bang. And truly, what is the hindsight to it? What is the 2020 vision that we have looking back over the years, the centuries, the millennia? And now that a lot of people use 2020 as a launching point part for what's new, what technologies, what integrations can we bring? And a lot of it just feels like, to me, the scrubbing of humanity as it stands now.
Mhm.
And
The scrubbing, you said as it stands now, as it stood
mm,
then or as it stands now, or we're still scrubbing, and that was the beginning?
we're in the scrubbing.
Yeah.
We're in it.
You
And
know, let me ask you
yeah.
a question regarding this. There's a TV show that was out before the pandemic, and it was called The Leftovers.
Ooh,
And it was sort of, I don't know why it reminded you a little of September 11th because the
mm,
characters remembered this date of October 13. So we had September 11th. So
yeah.
on October 13,
Mhm,
people disappeared. Like you could be sitting at your table having dinner with your kids, right? And
mhm,
like this one woman, one of the main characters, she was having I think a meal with her husband and kids, and they disappeared, and
mm,
he was a leftover. So everybody, on the show, they were the leftovers of people who disappeared.
I
And
see.
it was, I'm not gonna go all into the story, I just wanted to bring up
Mhm,
that part, and, super, super interesting show.
yeah,
And, but my nephew and I both, my adult nephew, we were both watching it, and so when after the pandemic happened and people started dying, n
mm,
not only from the pandemic, but from other illnesses during the pandemic.
yeah,
And so, I mean, in my family, we lost 7 people within, a matter of months, and none of it was COVID.
mm,
Well, one was. So,
mhm,
uh, I'm saying this to say, his thought was, people are checking out,
ah,
choosing to leave.
mhm,
People are leaving, I mean, it just, and that's the scrubbing. When you say the scrubbing,
yeah,
that, and then all of a sudden we start seeing on social media other people, they're losing,
mm,
a number of loved ones unrelated to COVID. And
yeah,
so I just thought of that, the leftovers, the scrubbing, as you were
yeah,
saying, scrubbing, and just choosing to leave, like maybe possibly don't want to be here anymore for this new incarnation of what we're.
about to experience,
Yeah.
absolutely. Um, there's multiple levels to it. I know that even and I don't think a lot of people would remember, in 2012, there was a huge wave of people as it came up to this specific date of December 21st, 20, or yeah, 2012. And everyone was like, "Oh, what's happening?" And I lost a few, quite a few of connections at that time. And what I learned through that process, I'm bringing it back to that point in particular, was we actually do have some level of choice into the time in which we don't know when it comes, but when it comes, we recognize it. And I'm only saying this based on the experiences of, again, near
Yeah.
death experiences, and realizing that I recognized that it was not my time at
Mm,
that time. And there's been a couple of incidents that's happened since that I knew it wasn't my time.
wow.
It's still
Yeah.
not quite there. I don't know if tomorrow's gonna be that day.
Yeah.
However, when we meet face to face with that moment, I really do believe there is a level of choice.
Mhm.
Um, with that, a lot of things did happen in 2020 that, now is coming out in regular media, but not everyone's ready to talk about or to hear. So it's not necessarily important in that way, but there is an aspect to which a lot of people were like, Yeah, I knew this was coming.
Now, what do
Yeah,
you
I don't want to participate in this.
and is that what you mean when you're talking about a scrubbing
The choice.
in the course, in context of being human, getting to that concept
Yeah, so getting into the concept of being human, there's a lot of things that were introduced. I know in my city in 2020, a new wave or level of launching of Wi-Fi happened.
of Wi-Fi?
Yeah, and for a lot of people, that caused a lot of health issues, including my household. So there were aspects of that level of technology, so increased frequencies in our environment that aren't necessarily natural to our state of existence. So it adds an extra level of stress in the body. It definitely adds an extra level of stress in the spirit at some level.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been discovering is there's such a shift in frequencies since 2020. And a
Mhm.
lot of people are like, I'm not feeling this. I'm not down with this.
Yeah.
As well as, and I know in my country, so I'm in Canada, and
Mhm.
in my country, 2020 was, well, actually, I think it was in 2018, they released a website regarding transhumanism, which back in my day, when I was growing up, this is a bionic woman where you're part machine,
Yes.
part human, right? And then being able to be like all super powerful because now those two are working together. However, that's the physical mechanical side of it all. And if it wasn't for the fact of all the things that I went through in my life that really caused me to get to where I am now, I probably wouldn't see it as such a bad thing. Um, I went through, and again, I I am so in awe and grateful of who it is that I am and the heart that I have towards the gift of being human and humanity itself in
Yeah.
its, we'll say, natural state. Because I hated humans. I I grew up in a time where racism was just a kick, right?
Mhm,
It was the
mhm.
thing. You could throw out whatever kind of comment you wanted and no one was correcting you. And I happen to be one of the darker skinned individuals in where I live. And so that brought a lot of attention and not exactly the positive and encouraging kind.
Yeah.
When we went out for recess and, they picked teams, I was that last person picked and often not picked. They
Yeah.
just left me on the sidelines not to play.
Mhm.
And I'm laughing about it now, but it's funny when I hear the stories of those that were, we'll say, the outlier, the underdog, the outcast. And when I hear it and I was like, I can totally relate, they don't even allow me to relate because I don't look like their experience. I don't I don't I've
Mhm.
gone to university and I have this level of education, and how could I be this person that's gone through the things that I've described? And the more and more that I allow myself to accept, as we described with the unconditional love condition, accept my experiences, more and more of those people who actually feel like how I felt inside of those experiences showed up in my life. I would say, like yourself included, we shared a lot of similar experiences growing up.
Mhm.
And I would have never have known that had I not gone through it,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that dialogue is not necessarily one you just throw out in the middle of, coffee talk. You don't just throw that out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
There has to be a likeness in it. There's got to be a vulnerability in it.
Mhm.
And that vulnerable space, that feeling space, is very tender for a lot of people. They don't want to experience it. So
Yeah.
that's where that scrubbing could be something that people would want to embrace. But they're not realizing that we as humans, in our natural, spiritual, physical, synergistic existence, we're the only ones who experience it.
Mhm.
And the more that we add in, I'll say augmentations, the less spiritual we become.
Yeah. And
Because we can't use that spiritual technology to refer to navigate our world. Now we've gone, we'll just say lazy and refer to the augment instead.
yeah. Um, I strongly feel that people cannot afford to uh, be have their head in the sand, not be connected to themselves,
Mhm.
connected to their spiritual core, to that divine part of us. I think that because of the things you're talking about, I mean, maybe you want to be here. Maybe a person wants to be here. Well, they can't exist here to me without being either they're going to be a robot or they're going to be connected to something real. And when I
Mhm.
say a robot, I mean unconscious, actually,
Yeah.
or they're going to be connected to something real. And it's so funny that you said transhuman. I hadn't
Mhm.
heard that term until a week ago.
Really?
Yes, when I
Yeah,
was
well, it's been
watching.
floating around over here.
Yes, I
They've
was
changed it now. So you, there's a new terminology. I don't even want to clasp onto it.
I
It's out
don't
there.
know. Well, I was watching and it completely, well, I don't know if completely, but related to what you were just describing. Um, I want to say his last name is Braden, Greg Braden. Do you
Yes,
know him?
absolutely.
Never heard of the man before. He popped up on two podcasts that I watch. And one of them, he almost for 2 hours, he was
Yes.
describing the technology that is coming within 5 years, and how it's important to be connected to your spiritual self,
Yeah.
because some of these things that you can have implanted in you will kill cells, will kill neurons, and that they will not regenerate. So if they're in a
Yeah.
child, they won't develop, the child won't develop the way
Yeah.
that they should, or we might become more dependent on technology rather than our own critical skill set. It just it's a lot.
It's like Jim Quick also had mentioned, because he's like, people don't, a lot of people, oh, my brain just doesn't work that way. Oh, I just don't remember or whatever. And he's like, it has nothing to do with that. Your brain will always be able to be trained in its memory. It's just that we've become, what is it? I still say that cell phones and um, the technology has made us digitally lazy. He has a different terminology for it. But for example, I only know about 3 or 4 phone numbers
Mhm.
off the
Most
top of
people
my head.
most people don't know one
I
at
I
this
don't
point
even
in life.
remember them now.
Yeah, yeah,
I remember the ones that I remember from like 20 years ago,
exactly. Those are the ones I remember.
right?
Yeah,
And they're no longer useful because they
yeah,
were for landlines.
yeah,
So
yeah.
they're not even useful numbers. But it's it's funny if we don't use it. And I think I saw what you were describing with Greg Braden, his podcast there, where he was sharing about um, the insidiousness of the technology that's coming. But I think, based on the fact that we are in part participating in bringing it in, and this is where, for me, I love the idea of having tools available to us that help things to be quicker and
Mhm,
help us to have experiences that we wouldn't otherwise have. For example, Right now, we are having a conversation and we are sharing deep about spirituality over technology. This is a great tool to use. However, it does not take away from the fact that if I was in your physical presence and we were sitting in a coffee shop and had a camera that had a video
Right.
function to it, that experience would be completely different than what we're having now.
Exactly.
There are so many things that, as convenient as they are, the visceral resonance of the experiences we could be having person to person,
Yeah.
face to face, in non-augmented spaces
Yeah.
really offer us a level of learning, resonance, I'll even say immunity
Yeah.
to the things that we experience in life, to our environments. We we speak through our vibration, our body vibration, our physical resonance to one another to inform one another of our experiences, good or
Yes.
bad, so that others can learn one way or another. It doesn't always have to come through our mouth.
Yeah.
There's what 70% of our language is non-verbal. So when we offer ourselves the opportunity to just be still and allow for that we'll say divine library to kick in, the experiences, the knowledge, the know-how, the intelligence, the genius, all these things that we highlight that we had to, I have to read a book and now I've got this knowledge or whatever.
Yeah.
That's not the fullness of knowledge.
Hmm.
And I say that coming from experiencing dyslexia. I didn't even say it for most of my life, but I never surrendered my intelligence into a book.
Right.
I embraced the fact that from reading certain stuff, I gained insight. And it's through those insights that help to embody the knowledge. And then now I have a choice of how I go out and share it. Do I
Right.
share it through example? Do I share it through teachings? So these are the things that we're really missing out on, the nuances when
Yes.
we give over to external things being our aid
Right.
in living our
And
lives.
and the thing is that what you just described about a book, right?
Mm.
And let's say I read that book and then I internalize that book, and you and I are in person, or we engage, we live in the same neighborhood or something, or we see each other regularly. And what you bring regarding
Mhm.
that book, I can learn from. Like, it doesn't even have to be regarding that book. How that book impacts you and helps you to grow and express yourself, I can learn from and receive, and vice versa.
Exactly. And I think a lot of religions passed on that way, and so it kind of watered things down. However,
Mm.
um, it's it's more so those religions are sharing the community. It's passing on of the community that was fostered through those teachings.
Yeah.
And if people can allow that to be more of the truth behind it, then they have empowered themselves to hold a stronger choice when they choose to have that as a part of their identity,
Yeah.
or if they choose to just to take the learnings from it and
Mhm.
say they're a part of a different religion, right? Say they're
Yeah.
Buddhist, but then they've read through the Bible and they see a lot of Buddhism inside the
Mhm.
Bible, right?
Yeah.
So depending on which filter that they choose to put on, they can still receive from that spiritual
Yeah.
learning, spiritual teaching and insight. And it brings everybody again back to the
Yeah.
source,
You
back
yeah.
into that relationship that is unique to humans.
Absolutely. You mentioned relationship when you were reading, you know, about love, and that's what I feel the relationship. That's what I feel spirituality is for me.
Mm,
Everyone has like their own definition, and mine is it's relationship with God
mhm.
or source or higher power. You know, it's that interactive relationship.
Yeah,
And if for me, if I'm not engaged with God, then God's just right here and I don't even know what's up. You know, I don't have the in awareness if I'm not engaging.
yeah.
And I compare it to uh in the Bible, the 10 Commandments. And the I contrast it with, I should say, the 10 Commandments, because I feel that relationship transcends the 10 Commandments. And there's people who they live and die by these rules, you know, these 10
Mhm.
rules. But the relationship, it's it transcends that to me.
Yeah.
It's that and more. It's that
It,
and more.
it's funny because as you were saying that, the Ten Commandments are all relational.
Mhm.
So each point is based on establishing the intimacy of the relationship. So, and that's for me, that's the
Mhm.
insight that comes through for me.
Yeah, yeah.
But if we're going to have that conversation, let's look at the boundaries. Let's look at how we would set just having interaction with any old person or building and developing a really deep and intimate relationship. And so that's where the Ten Commandments kind of lists that. And it also says, hey, when you see somebody else having that kind of relationship with somebody else or with me, can you leave that alone? Can you not infringe on that? Can you
Let
leave
it
that
be.
that man and his woman, that and can you leave that daughter and or that mother and son relationship like as it is? Can you honor these different stages that we've established to be gifts of relationship that you can learn from and be nurtured by and supported by as is, so that they can bloom, they can blossom, they can grow, and they can show you the fullness of life that you could be living.
Yeah.
So,
And I think
yeah,
that that is so beautiful, and there's people that may not go that deeply,
and
and it
that's
may
the
say
gift of it.
honor yeah, it
Yeah,
says honor their mother and father,
yeah.
and they just take it literally. I mean, of course, you should honor your mother and father. I'm not saying otherwise, but
Mhm.
you just went deeper, you know, and you just described something deeper and beautiful. And I'm just saying that I think sometimes people just take of them as bullet points. This is what I'm supposed to do. Period. This is what I'm
Yeah.
supposed to do. Period.
And I think and for me, that's the gift of um, relationship. I like to say relationship and spirituality.
Hmm.
Spirituality is just what we get to be because we are. We are like what I think like 95%, probably even greater spirit.
Yeah.
Spirituality is us. Like,
Yes.
it is us
Yes.
looking at us and experiencing us and being in the fullness of, oh, this is what I am. And I get to show this through my body, through my individuated physical presence and existence into this world. Oh, and I get to bounce it off of other energies, resonate, and now have relationship with those. And it helps to influence the choices that I would make. For me, that is all the aspects of spirituality that we get to have. It's that journey in this eternal energy by which we have been created to be.
Wow, that is incredibly beautiful. And you said all the aspects of spirituality and of being human.
Yeah.
As you were talking, I was thinking, that just sounds so wonderful. This is what I get to do as a human being.
Yes. And get to, not have to. And it's funny because I had this conversation, and I just share this story that I had. I went to the dentist. I was having a tooth removed. You know, when you know that you should have just done the thing that the way that you wanted to in the first place. Like this tooth went from, it was absolutely fine. And I had all my wisdom teeth. And then they were saying, "Oh, well, this one tooth is going to grow sideways, so you should take them all out." And I was like, "Why? Why would we do that if I've got how many perfectly good teeth? Just leave them and take the one bad one out." No, went through this whole surgery, almost lost my life that time, and then got braces. I had the braces or whatever, and then there was a gap in the cement or whatever. So then something got in there, cavity. Now we got a root canal that needs to get done. And the anesthetic is not working. So they drilled it without painkillers. Yo. And it still caused problems for almost over 20 years. And in the end, I was like, just take the thing out. And the thing that they were warning me that it might cause if I had that one less tooth would never have happened. It's false. Let me just put this out there for anyone who's but just say, if it's the one just take out the one wisdom tooth. Don't let them, they charge you per tooth. Anyways, with all that said, the dental hygienist that I had at the time, and this will also share an aspect of the whole technology thing and the human thing. She shared with me about her daughter. And her daughter was not living a life that she would prefer. Like her daughter was drug addicted, living on the streets, and recently was in the hospital because it looked like she needed to get something amputated. Mm. And while she was sharing this, she's like, "Oh, honey, like, your life is so hard. Like, why do you want to keep going? Like, just, we can have a big party for you. We can celebrate the life that you did have. And then if you want, you can take the assisted, suicide."
She said this to her daughter?
She was sharing this with her daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And her daughter was listening to her, and she's like, I thought I had her convinced, like, it would be easier on everybody. And then her daughter looks at him and she's like, "Thank you so much for loving me." She's like, "But where's the fun in that?" And I was like, this is such a blessing. All of this 20-year journey with this one tooth for this one moment to hear someone whose life was just in the pit of despair to everyone around them. And yet, even in the height of all their hardship, what? I'm still living. What are you talking about? I'm still living.
Yes.
So to her, she is living fully in her life, in the experiences, in the pain, in the mire, in the elation through whatever drug that she's on at the time. But she's living it, she's feeling it, she's in the full emotions of it, and she ain't done with it yet.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
And in that, I knew that I was so fully committed to my mission to help people live their life as fully as they desire now.
Yeah,
from where they are right now. We all have it available to us in full right now from where we are.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And God meets us. God will meet us where we are.
It's an experience and God gets to live it through us.
Yes. And it so speaks for me to how we all, each of us, have a right to our own journey.
Yes.
And that was tough for me because my brother, when both of my brothers have passed, but when my first brother, the first brother to pass, it was hard because I was worried about him. You know, we were all worried about the choices he was making in terms of his health. And I had to accept for me to move on, you know, as hard as it was when he passed, that he was entitled to his own journey. He was
Yeah.
entitled to make the choices that he made. And that's helped me with other people. You know, we're all entitled to live our lives the way we choose to. And
Yeah.
it can be hard when we love someone and they're living in a destructive way. It can
It's
be
so
hard,
true.
but we all have that grace from God to live the way we so choose.
Yeah. And it for me it feels like being inside a marriage. Like it it feels like when I was born, it, now, of course, do I remember the moment at which I was born? No, I don't remember the moment. But I'm equating it to the fact at the point at which I made those vows and commitment with my husband, and then we signed the paper and we were both in full agreement for the eternal commitment we were making. So when we got married, we made an eternal commitment. And then following short thereafter, about a month or so, we also both got baptized as Christians. And so then it just doubled down on everything.
Mhm.
But us coming into this life is like each one of us stepping into our own marriage with God. That's what it feels like. It feels like that is our one on one relationship. And yeah, sometimes the experiences aren't so great. Sometimes we're a little abusive on the other side of things, right? Um, and, and and then we repent and we get better and we grow and it gets better as we get older or not, or we make certain choices and it doesn't reflect well. But you know, that loving God spouse is just right there in it with us,
Mhm.
you know, through thick or thin,
Yeah.
was for better for worse. And also, it ain't none of anybody else's business a lot of the time because the conversation
Right.
is mano a mano. It's inside my head. You
Right.
don't get
Right.
to hear it for a reason. That's intimacy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's such a beautiful gift to even sit and reflect on the conversations that you've been gifted the opportunity to have inside your own head
Mhm.
with your heart and mind present
Yeah.
to think about such things as your life, to think about such things as loving somebody else and what you would prefer. And you have that back and forth conversation, knowing that it's not you and you having that conversation, you know, it's not, it's
No,
not
it's
that.
you. No, it's you
It's,
and God.
it's you and God are having that
Yeah.
conversation back and forth. Like it's beyond best friend, you know, the best friends
Mhm.
forever, BFF. It's
Mhm.
beyond that.
Yeah.
It's beyond time and space.
Mhm.
And even if we decide, and this is the best part, we get to decide to either sit in our stuff and have God meet us here with us, or if we want to take that journey to another level, we decide to go sit with God in it and we get so much more out of it.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah,
oh, it's so
yeah,
juicy there.
yeah,
Anyways, we
yeah.
won't go into that whole
But
spiel. That's another journey.
so I think I told you this, I'm not sure, but, so I
Mhm.
study A Course in Miracles. Well, you know
Yes.
that, but I
Yes.
used to go to this, discussion group on Sundays before the pandemic,
Nice.
and so always, and I've brought this up on my podcast before, but always by the end of the 2 hours, just you could feel this love and spirit, in the room, and one of the people in the group, he used to say leaving that group was the like when it was over, excuse me,
Mhm.
on that particular day, and he would go get in his car, like that is the best he would feel the entire week,
Yeah.
just so elevated. So I go to the group one Sunday, and then uh I leave there, and then I go to a spiritual brunch, and there's a, spiritual conversation for a couple of
Mhm.
hours. Then I go back to this person's home where the Course in Miracles group was, and we used to have higher conversations. That's what we called them, about different topics, in the world. We do that like maybe once a month or something like that. So the whole day, it's just spirituality, God, the whole day. And I was so, high. I was feeling my spirit so way up here. And I love having, these conversations. And I was thinking, oh, I just want to do this all the time, because I
Nice.
just love feeling this way. And then I realized that that feeling is inside me. It's not just outside of me, it's inside of me. And that I can have this whenever I choose to, by connecting, really connecting with God
Mhm.
and having that conversation, like you're talking about,
Yeah.
meeting God where God is,
Mhm.
and that is inside all of us, and the realization and the feeling of that. And that feeling can come out in different ways.
Oh,
But when
yeah.
that feeling arises in me, it's such an affirmation in addition to just being so beautiful.
Exactly. I am, well, I've been sharing this in my embodiment group, aspects of my journey. And I mean, coming up this week, I'm going to share a little more about um, following through with the instructions that you get.
That's
Like,
big.
and it's funny because a lot of people, oh, obedience, oh, it's so, oh, this was written by man for man to overpower and control and blah. It's like, I get it. I get it. I get it. I was resistant. I was. And you know what it did for me? It kicked me in the pants, even this week.
I d
So,
I do have an issue with that word, but not with the underlying point. But
yeah.
go ahead. Go on.
And it's funny because the origins of the word obey are more along the lines of gratitude. And if we were to actually be in a space, and this, it's funny, comes back around to love, y'all. But if we were to be in the space of true gratitude, gratitude inspires our action. It'll take our insights and it'll put them into physical form. And that's obedience.
Mhm,
But best part is gratitude is love.
mhm.
So we're just putting God into action.
Yeah.
And if we allow ourselves to do that, it's like God just, he wants to work through us. God wants to work through us in the lives of those that are around us. And so sometimes we'll get insights, right? Mine this week was, oh, tell your husband while he's picking up, the bananas and the other groceries to pick up a lottery ticket. I was like, I'm going to tell him to pick up a lottery ticket. He's going to scoff at me and say, and I was like, I don't want to get that. So I didn't. Well, somebody won the lottery big in the number that I saw, in the number I saw. So not the numbers, but the jackpot in my city, and they still haven't checked their ticket.
Wait, hold on. You were inspired. You felt the
No,
calling
I heard it in
message.
my head.
Buy a lottery
Ask
ticket, and the
ask him to buy
number,
a lottery ticket too.
and then you
I
also saw a number. Are you saying?
I saw the jackpot number, right? And I heard this instruction. And I was like, "Ugh, whatever. He's just gonna scoff at me and play the lottery, blah blah blah." So I was like, he's like, "Is that it? There wasn't anything else?" I cut it off. And I'm thinking, okay. Okay.
The jackpot, that the number
It
that
was
came
the
out
same
was your
number.
number.
It was one here in the somebody bought a ticket here. It was just this Wednesday. So when he went to go get the groceries, it would have been for the Wednesday draw.
Wow.
And I was like,
Ooh.
huh, okay, yeah, I felt that one.
Ooh.
Okay, let me keep in step with the spirit, God. I'm gonna listen. I'm gonna follow through. So when you tell me something, it sounds ridiculous in my head. Why am I judging? Why am I judging? Throw it out there. If he throws it back at me, it's fine.
Yes.
I've got an example that's humbled me out. I'm no longer judging the word obey. It's an English word. Let's pull
Yeah.
it from a different language. It
Yeah.
probably sounds
Or
different, feels
follow.
different,
You could say
right?
follow.
There's
Yeah.
there's all these beautiful,
Wow.
obrigado, it's
Yeah.
that's gratitude. That's thank you in I think
Maybe
it's
it wasn't,
Portuguese.
maybe it wasn't about the winning,
It wasn't
that
about the winning.
God knew that you weren't, you were not going to
I'm
follow
not
through,
tied to this
but it
whole,
yeah,
right?
but it
Yeah,
was
but
about that there's something else that he wants
yeah.
you to be prepared for when he speaks to you. He wants to make sure you follow through.
Amen. Yeah, that got my attention. So with that, with that, with that technology, with that slightness, with that whisper, be able to be heard inside of an augmented reality. Would we
Mhm,
be able to fine tune to these experiences that are part of the ether, all in design to support us and
mhm.
for us to work through? We're here supporting one another. We're already inside a huge, as Greg Braden said on the thing, spiritual technology.
Yeah,
Why are we interrupting it?
yeah,
Why are we stepping in the way of? Why don't we play in it more so we can see the fullness of what it truly can bring into our lives
yeah.
and what it can offer us? There
Mhm.
have been so many things in our societies and just in, people wanting to control, and we
Yes.
get it because that
Yeah.
has been touted as a level of defining success,
Mhm, mhm.
that you have this level of control over control and influence. Well,
Yeah,
so that people understand it's not about the money.
yeah.
It's about the level of influence.
Mhm,
And even inside of having the money, there's choices that you get to make
mhm.
that you wouldn't as freely choose to make if you felt quote unquote hindered or under the level of success that society offers.
Yeah, yeah.
So, or offers as a metric. But if we're tapping more into our spiritual framework, we can recognize, like for me, I don't feel a loss at the I'm not beating myself up over not telling my husband about
Mhm.
I'm fine because why? 30 million's plenty. They're going to be in my city. Maybe I know them. Maybe they're a really good friend of mine. Maybe they know the good I'm going to do and they're going to contribute. Who knows, right? It's all good. But while I'm out here, I'm going to focus on sharing my wealth
Mhm.
because there's more to wealth than
Absolutely.
numerics in my
Absolutely.
bank account.
Yes.
And the way that those numerics get there is through me living in the fulfillment of the life that I've been designed to be here for.
Yeah. I want to ask you something. I was looking at one of your videos and something was coming up for me. And
Mhm,
you were talking about uh, at one point in your life when you were going through such a difficult time and
mhm.
you just felt numb.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and it was bringing up for me a call for love, which comes up in
Mm,
A Course in Miracles. If it's not love, it's a call for love. And you were saying, and you can share, uh, but you were saying you were experiencing um, some abuse, and you would shut down, and then you would, sometimes you might express anger. You felt anger inside, and I thought, that's an example to me of what you were experiencing of a call for love. Like someone might see you, have no idea what is going on with you, and just see something that they might think is negative, angry, just something. But really, it's a call for love that we
yeah.
just don't see what other people are experiencing and going through.
You
We don't
know,
see beneath the facade that we
it's
put up
funny
sometimes.
that you bring that up because, yeah, I wanted to share about that experience for me, but yesterday, just yesterday, going to the grocery store, as I got out of my car, I heard this man yelling, ah, and he's raging at the people going in to the grocery store. So he's a little, what people would say, not so straight up here. He's got the, we'll say, I'm just gonna say homeless garb. He's got the cardboard. And he's yelling at people. And so I passed this one lady, and she's got this look on her face, like, hmm. I was like, I know, I hear you. Just in that offered me a moment of connection, sharing in the struggle. But as I walked up, because I was like, do I choose a different door? How am I navigating this? I let go of my hustle. I just wanted to be in and out and get to where I was going, but I dropped that. And then I noticed he wasn't yelling at people anymore. And I look over, and there's this one older man. This man, he's got a bit of a hunch, coming over to the guy, and he's speaking softly to him. And he's like, what's going on? And he's just getting inside of his story. And he was fully present with him in spirit. And the man was calm. And he touched the man, and he's talking to him. And the man's dirty. It's the middle of winter. None of us look pretty in our winter clothes. And especially up here in Canada, it's a little extra cold. And after the man walks away from him, he's not raging at people anymore. He's standing back with kind of an apologetic presence and just watching people as they go in. And it let me know that we all desire to be seen, and we recognize in our souls. I won't even say at a spiritual level, because spiritual level already has its own communication. And in our souls, we recognize when there's unlovingness happening, and we're calling it out to show up. So, do I get upset when my child is acting out? Yes. First of all, because he's now holding an illusion within himself that he's experiencing unlove. And so he's acting out, which is creating an unloved experience. Where if he would allow himself to open up and receive the question, what's up? What's going on? How are you doing? If we allow people into that space to truly answer from a space of just truth. Yes, it's vulnerable. It doesn't matter. You're already in a vulnerable state if you're expressing a negative emotion. People don't realize that, that they're
Yeah.
wide open to anything entering in when we're expressing our negative emotions. And negative as more so unserving to
Yeah.
our well being. But when we're in that space already and we don't want to receive, we are in full receiving of whatever wants to take residence. So there's a scripture in the Bible, and it's funny because I obviously use it often because my son used it with a friend the other day, and I was like, whoa. He's like, there's that scripture, the one with the spirits and the clean house. And I was like, oh, yeah, 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 because the person went through so much work to clean themselves up, to get themselves right. And that unwanted spirit left. But then the unwanted spirit had nowhere to land. Good news, the person was in good company. So they came back to the house to find it empty. And it was that emptiness. For me, I was like gutted when I read it. I was like, I can't believe, why is it empty? Oh my gosh. And the thing is, it's like, oh, it's free and clear. Goes and gets some of his friends, his
Mhm.
unserving friends, to come and join. And now the condition of the person was even worse than it was before. And in that, we realize when we're getting something out, we've got to be moving something good in. It does say in increasing measure, add these things into your life, the praiseworthiness, the excellence, all these good things. These are to be added to us as well. The reason why is because if we want something out, that unwanted spirit left because it was being cleaned. It didn't want to stay where it wasn't welcome. Isn't that something?
It's so interesting what you just said because when if I feel some angst in me, right,
Mhm.
and I wanna get grounded, and feel the love of God, me moving it out, God is a part of me moving it out.
Yeah.
So me bring like, it's so simultaneous, and it's so interesting, when I'm thinking about what you're describing. Some people, I guess, move things out, but
Without.
don't replace it with anything else. And that is also has me thinking about being clean and sober. The idea, like some
Mm,
people just get clean. I used to not know what that meant. Like
yeah.
some people could just be clean, but if they don't do the work,
Hmm.
they're still active in the
Yeah.
disease. From what I've been told, it's
Yeah.
when they do the work and they're sober,
Yeah.
the work makes them sober. Just
Yeah.
being clean isn't enough. Just
Exactly.
stopping the drinking or the drug is not enough. Sober means you're doing the work.
Yeah. And I think even in that aspect of taking on something into your being so that you can have a better experience instead of creating a vision of who you want to be like and what kind of practices and lifestyle that you live. And when you wake up in the morning, get your coffee, what does that look like? Or if you have coffee or tea, or if you don't like breakfast, and then instead you go for a walk in nature, or you do some gardening,
Yeah.
and then you go meet with some friends, or you like to swim or be by the ocean. These are aspects of building the vision of the experience we want to have for our lives.
Yes.
That's the moving in,
That's
right?
real.
And if we also include that God is with us in that journey, it's way more, as the list said, effortless. It feels easy and blissful
Mhm.
instead of trying to do it by our own works and thinking it's enough just the doing
Yeah. Yeah.
instead of the being.
Yeah.
So we
What
miss out on that part.
as we're gonna wind down, what can you share that can be baby steps or initial steps for people about what we're talking about getting connected and, just getting on the path where they want to be emotionally, spiritually more healthy and connected?
You know, it's funny because it depends on how brave you are. So like the woman who's like, I ain't done yet. Her leg's about to be amputated and she's still doing drugs, but she's living that life. Or someone who just feels so beaten down by life's judgments and shames and abuses and negative relationships and not being able to even try and consider living their life better or that it would work out. Maybe something does show up, but it's like, "Ugh, well, I can't trust that it's going to stay around." Well, question it. It's in your own head. You're not question. It's not a teacher at the front of a classroom that if you pose a question and they don't like the answer that you give them, then now you're silenced and it's embarrassing and everything. This is actually a private space that you can question and ask in a loving way, in a compassionate way. But what if that's not true? What if that negative thing isn't true? What if I can have that and endure it? Endure the good for longer than, a hot minute. What if it will stay around and now that becomes the goodness of my life? And the negative things are like short intervals that happen during a
Mhm.
day. What if my day doesn't have to be bad? What if it's just a bad moment in a good day? How can we allow goodness to be a part of the life that we get to live? What I was shared with, so a friend of mine, I love her dearly, uh, lost a little bit of contact. I'm thinking that she's more recluse right now. I don't think she's totally gone. But she shared with me a process of breathing and saying, I am here, I exist. And really allowing that to be okay and not just enough, but to be the fullness that can just totally fill you to the top. And it's like, wow. And now you're in awe and amazement that, wow, I get to be here.
Mhm.
It's like, how many times have I near died already? And I was like, God, again, like, I'm still here. You must have a great purpose for me to be here,
Mhm.
that I get to live over and over and over again. I feel like a cat with, well,
Yeah.
beyond 9 lives now.
Do you feel that God is whispering something to you or speaking to you about something specific in these moments of your life right now? Do you
So, yeah, right now, so
imparting something?
I'm definitely in a process, in a that is soul language for those who know what that means. You get it. And there'll always be that aspect in life where it's like, man, this is rough. And yet, it's like going tobogganing. You all dressed up in all your snow clothes. You see the hill is steep. There's a lot of snow. It's a sunny day, perfect temperature. Like I'm talking about right now. Like I'm ready to go. Well, not in this outfit, but you get the idea. And you go and put yourself on a sled and throw yourself down a hill. Guaranteed not to still be in the sled at the end. But the ride down is exhilarating. And you know it's not the end of it. You get up, walk back up the hill,
Do it
and
again.
try it again. That's life. And right now, I'm walking back up that hill. Now, I wish there was a tow rope sometimes, some moments,
But what do you
but
think that God, if you want to share, what do you think
mhm,
God is imparting to you, uh, for you, or for others, for you to convey to others, or for
mm,
yourself specifically?
you are here for a purpose that must include your joy and delight. It must include your joy and delight. Now, if you're not in joy and delight, it's because you're choosing to withhold yourself from it. It may feel like it's other people, but even in the space, I think, was it Viktor Frankl, right? Where was his heart and mind when he was going through those concentration camps? It was on his family. It was on the human condition. It was on the strength and power by which we get to choose our thoughts and responses.
Mhm.
Not every situation is our fault, but we have the power and the ability to respond, responsibility to shape those experiences into what we can control.
Mhm.
And it's in here, this is ours.
Yeah.
In here is also that garden in relationship with God. And in here is where we get the gift of elation in spite of our situation.
Mm. So beautiful. How can people reach you?
So, depending on where you're seeing this, just put my name in. So if you're seeing it on YouTube, then on YouTube you can, and I'll give Adrian my tag, but you can send me a message through YouTube. You can get a hold of me. My name, Elisa Sterling-Cowan, on what's it called? Facebook and
And your
Instagram.
embodiment page, your embodiment group.
Yeah, so my embodiment is an inner group. So that's for special people, and then that will be moving in. So um, that will be moving into membership sometime this year,
Okay.
as well as for those that are generally interested in keeping up with um, how to live their lives more fully. I have my Fly group, which is Fully Living You. And the link is on my banner in Facebook. So you can definitely, it's a Facebook group. So you can join me there. And I share
I'll put
some
a
of
link
these.
here too.
Yeah. And you can get into the insights, the inner insights. I don't share everything on my Facebook page. I do have a Momentum Monday kind of thing. Sometimes it's posted Tuesday, Wednesday. It's a long story. Life be life. And I'm
Yeah.
human. I'm human. Um, but definitely you can reach out to me there as well. And then, as well, if you're interested in working with me, I do guide, mentor, coach people one on one. So you can also reach me that way as well.
Well, Elisa, this is wonderful. I just am so grateful. Of course, I'm going to want you back again. And just thank you for all your wisdom and just who you are as a person.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love having conversations with you, Adrian. I think
Mhm.
your heart and literally your insight into who you're talking to and their stories just really help to uplift all of us
Oh,
into our humanity. And so I want to thank you for your service in that.
thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember, you can find Let's Start Healing wherever you get your podcasts. Please subscribe and share Let's Start Healing with at least one person that you know. Like the episode. And until next time, let's start healing.